Well, hello and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast. This is a collection of stories that point to purpose. I'm Brandon and I have an awesome life, but that's not special because you do too. You see, having an awesome life is just about celebrating the small moments in which God shows up and makes this life awesome. In every episode of this podcast, we're going to talk to a friend, we're going to listen to their story, and we'll hear about those moments, the ones in which God showed up in their life and pointed them forward in their calling. Today, we're talking to my new friend, Christa Gagnon. Christa is a mom of three. She's a family vlogger, and she is a joy to be around. She's got an incredible story, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm going to let her tell it. But today, we dive into so many topics, including how to sit with somebody in grief and how to support them. We talk about how to deal with a difficult situation, and we talk about how to get the most out of this life, even when things seem challenging. So let's dive in, explore her story, and celebrate this awesome life. Speaking of stories, did you know that every cup of coffee has a story? That's right, from planting to harvesting to processing all the way to your cup. Coffee has a unique journey that has a lot to teach us about our own journey. And that's why I wrote the book, Magic in the Mug. In this book, we're going to discover the coffee process one step at a time and learn life lessons along the way about what each step has to tell us about our own personal journey in discovering our purpose. If you're looking for a life with purpose, you can discover it here one sip at a time with Magic in the Mug, available now on Amazon or by going to magicinthemug.com. Pick up your copy today. Well, hey everyone, like I said, I am here with my new friend, Christa Gagnon. She has got an incredible story. Christa, I'm so thankful to have you on the show today and really can't wait to dive in and just kind of talk about your story and how you found purpose through just all of it. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and let's just jump in.
Sure. So at the core of me, I am a mother and a wife. I have always wanted to be a mom. I tried to go to university, and after a year decided that all I wanted to do was be a mom.
Nice.
So that is ultimately at my core. But as I share my story, you'll see how it's evolved now to I'm a full-time family vlogger, and we really spend our time sharing our story, the good, the bad, everything in between, and trying to, to share our story with the world and spread a little bit of light and love through it.
Awesome. So the way that kind of turned a little bit when you're like, oh, I just wanted to be a mom, but tell me, so basically it didn't go exactly how you thought it would.
No, not exactly. Well, I did. I am a mom of three. I have
Nice.
a 17-year-old boy, which is challenging. And then I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old boy. And so that did go as planned. I did. I am a mom. And I've always, made a conscious decision to be there for my kids. Like I chose to find a way to work from home, to always be there, which in the end has ended up being very beneficial for us. But 7 years ago, my daughter was actually diagnosed with a rare genetic terminal condition called giant axonal neuropathy. So GAN for short, you can call it GAN. Okay. And that is for sure where things didn't quite go as we had expected. So didn't quite go to plan.
Gotcha. So 17-year-old boy, I've never had one of those. I imagine it's challenging because I've been one and I was challenging. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter, so I'm with you in some of the fun seasons of that. But tell us a little bit more about your story. Here we talk a lot about purpose. At the end of the day, I truly believe that the way that God kind of points us to what our purpose is through the day-to-day moments, not through these big crazy flashing neon signs, as cool as that would be, but just in the day-to-day experiences we have, the relationships that we build. He's constantly talking, constantly speaking into our lives and pointing us in that direction. So share a little bit about your story and kind of how you found purpose in it, and what you would say that purpose is.
Yeah. And so I challenge you a tiny little bit on that one, because I think that the purpose, I think that the purpose isn't acted every day in like these tiny little things that I end up doing. But I think for us, I in this process, I've created a group of parents who get together once a month. It's called Our Best Life, and it is parents who are raising terminally ill children. And so this is a big a big thing. Like
Yeah,
having
that's fair.
a kiddo like this is life-changing. It's trauma. It's, like all the big words you want to put to it is all those things. And so I never really thought about purpose until this big thing happened. And we talk a lot in that group about how in order to kind of make some good of this like really terrible thing that's happening, there's like this big pressure to put purpose or to bring some kind of purpose out of it or to bring some kind of passion out of it. So for me, it was this big life-changing event that now makes me like really lean into what I think God's purpose is for my life. But like I said, it's in the day-to-day that you see that like actually transpire, right? In the little things that we do. And this isn't, I didn't, like my daughter wasn't diagnosed and I was like, oh my gosh, I have such purpose from this. Like it didn't know it happened that way. We've been in this for 7 years now. And I would probably say that the first 4 years was very dark and very hard. And I had a very hard time just managing life. Like I just thought that I was failing, that like I just couldn't get my stuff together and didn't realize right away that I was in grief. Like I'm living in like a constant state of grief, grieving for my daughter, grieving for what will be. And so now I would say that my purpose, like if I have to put like a title to it, is to probably help people. Well, number one, to share this like amazing gift that my daughter has, this like light and hope and like brightness that she has for the world. I love sharing that. But the other side of it is to also share the really hard stuff, like how the really down times, like the really painful times, to openly share them so that other parents know that they're not alone and other people know that they're not alone and they have like a safe place that if they need to talk to somebody, there is that. So it's evolved. That's like a Cliff's Notes, but it's evolved over the last 7 years.
That's so great. There's a lot of things that you said in there that like, I love that I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit because this was a big thing. And I think that's, absolutely the big things often regularly are the things that point us to it. And as I look back, I'm like, yeah, well, Moses got a burning bush. So there's a lot of times when it is a big thing. And so I respect that. And I think that there is plenty of, and I love the way that you've taken it like, hey, there was this big thing and now I'm going to live that out through the day-to-day moments. But for you, this seems like there was this big thing and you said you were in this season of grief. How did you process that to get to that other side? Because there are a lot of people that get into that season of grief and they'd never come out of it. So what was it that moved you through that to get you to a place where you could say, all right, now how can I use this to help others and celebrate my daughter in a way that she can be celebrated?
Yeah, so I still am in grief. I have never moved through it. So when COVID very first happened, I heard the term anticipatory grief, probably through TikTok, because that's where I get all my information. And I had never heard the term before. Like when my daughter was diagnosed, the same, couple months she was diagnosed, I was losing my mom to cancer. So like I felt grief and I know what it's like to lose somebody, but like the difference about anticipatory grief is that it comes and goes in waves. But what's happening is you're grieving for somebody that's right there in front of you. So it's like this pain that almost you need to keep like private and hidden because you don't want to impact the memories and the days that you still do have left. Okay, so I haven't come through it. I am actively feeling it because that is one of the things that I hope people can learn from me is that for the first 4 years, I really just tried to stuff down those feelings. I tried to pretend like everything was fine. We were fine. Put on a good face. Like we're still doing all the things. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
And it didn't work. Like there would be times where like my body would be like, no, you're not fine. And I would end up in bed for like 2 weeks at a time, just totally emotionally like unable to handle. And so I've learned over that time frame that grief, all the feelings, they really need to just be felt. Like you need to give yourself grace and the patience to like actually sit in those feelings for a minute and like process them instead of just trying to pretend like they're not there. And so I like to use the analogy like the feelings of grief come and like it's like I'm on a hike and I need to rest and I'm camping. So I set up a tent, right? And I stay for the night in my tent. But like I don't set up like I'm not building like a house, out of like stone. I'm just setting up my tent so the next day I can take it down and keep moving. So yeah,
that's good. So basically, kind of like as it comes, you deal with it there in that moment, and then you kind of move forward as you can, and then you deal with what happens there, and then move forward as you can. That's really good. That's a good way to look at it, because I mean, even for me, like think about it as like, okay, the situation happened, here's the consequences, here's how I'm feeling, let me deal with these feelings and move on. But your situation, it's continuing to evolve, and you're continuing to experience new feelings or things like that. Do you find that those feelings kind of come more at like, as you talk about anticipatory grief, like as you approach what would have been milestones that maybe don't apply, is that kind of sort of like that hike that you're referring to, you think?
So I'll talk to my own personal, because everybody would be a little bit different in this, sure, based on like who they're caring for or, who they're losing. But for us, my daughter's condition is progressive. So she hit every milestone when she was little, and she developed typically. So she walked, she crawled, she walked, she did all of those things. And so if you've ever known anybody who has ALS, it's kind of like ALS for kids. And so she loses function as she gets older and as her condition progresses. So it'll slowly take everything away from her till eventually it just takes away her breathing, and that's the end. And so as we move forward and as we lose, let's say, a function, or as something, gets worse, then that for sure is like a poignant moment. That for sure is one of those moments where like, knock you down. You got to just like feel this. But there is little ones that come throughout time too, where like, you'll watch somebody else be able to do something that you just wish you could do. Like, and it can be so little. Like, I wish in the morning I could just tell my kids, okay, everybody get in the car. Come on, we're going to school, right? Like, I wish it was just that easy. And so it doesn't happen every day where I'm like, that I have that envy or that grief. It just kind of shows up, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't like, of course, the big ones, there's rhyme and reason to that. Like we're losing something, right? And it's measurable, but on the day to day, there's really no rhyme or reason to when those little moments come up.
Yeah, I got you. Man, that's hard. That's hard. How do you, so there's that side of it, but there's the side of it where you've chosen to make something positive about it, to make, something great. And your daughter like seems to, you said she's got this light about her, like how does she kind of impact those feelings? And then how did you decide to do something with that has given you purpose?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like a big baby over here because I'm like, oh, what's happening to me? Like I'm all like, like this is so hard on me. She is very, there's lots of lessons to be learned from Jordan. And, one of them is that she's very in the moment. She doesn't often like worry about what was or, what is coming. She just is very like happy to be in the moment. She does have lots of dreams though, that she wants for the future. But, so, in watching her, I probably take away that. And like I kind of touched on earlier, there is a little bit of what's the right word to put on this? There is a little bit of pressure on, like if you have this limited amount of time to like make the best of it. I try not to feed into that. I try to be the opposite of that, because really like you were saying earlier, life happens in the little moments, and not everything is like this big thing. Like, if we hadn't been given this news and we didn't know what was coming, we would enjoy just as much cuddling on the couch as we would, having like a big trip, or, you know what I mean? Like the little times that you spend with your family are really usually the most important. So to that answer your question, I feel like I went on a tangent there for a second.
No, it's all right. I as you were saying that, it reminded me of that, like you said, the little moments, like what are some of those? Can you think of any like little moments that have really sparked like a lot of joy and made you appreciate those little moments and say like, hey, let's like slow down and be here?
Yeah. I don't know that there's any like in particular, but like a very specific one, but we do really enjoy just being together as a family. Like we're, like I said, if we just go on a walk together and are joking with each other, that's great. But we also like the cool, fun stuff too. My youngest, who's 10 now, he likes to joke a lot with Jordan about how she gets us into all the cool stuff because of who she is. So we keep her around because of that reason. So, anything that we're doing as a family is just enough. Like, yeah, there's not one particular moment, but
yeah. I get
you
that.
know what it is? You know what is actually my favorite is being in the car with them. Okay. Like we only just started, like road tripping, but even, going like we live in a fairly big city. So even just going from one side to the other, like the best conversations happen in the car, like the most like bonding, I feel like.
Yeah, there's something about car time. My family, we've moved a lot and we do the drives. And then, as a result, we live kind of farther away from family. We recently moved to North Carolina, which put us much closer to family. So I'm guessing we'll do less of those big road trips. But last year we were in Omaha, Nebraska at the time. And we drove from Omaha to Charleston, South Carolina to be with family, to celebrate a birthday. Then we drove from Charleston to Orlando to go to Disney and do all of that stuff. And then we drove from Orlando all the way back to Omaha, which is like a 22-hour drive or something like that, I think. And we didn't do it in one shot, thankfully. But everyone's like, how do you do that with your kids in the car? I'm like, my kids are better in the car than they are out of it, And so I agree with you. I love being in the car with my kids because you're right. There's just those conversations that happen in the car are special. I take my kids to school every morning and we've started doing like, what's your high from yesterday, your low from yesterday, and what are we praying for today? How can we pray for you? And it's been great to just watch them. My wife took them to school this morning, and my youngest, who's 9, is like, Mom, we got to do the things. We got to do the highs and the lows and the prayers. And it was awesome. So I agree with you. The car time is special.
Yeah. And honestly, like it's the only time I can get my 17-year-old to talk to me.
Well, there you go.
It's like he has to be like in the car seat beside me, locked in for a good like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes
probably
in.
need I was going to say, you need like a warm-up period too. Like the first 10 minutes are still silent and you're like watching the clock.
Yeah.
But, yeah. My oldest is like that as well. It's like you ask her a question and you're lucky to get one word out of her. Good. Yeah. No, that kind of stuff. But, yeah, until you start talking about Taylor Swift and then she'll talk to you forever. But yeah. So what would you say, like if somebody's kind of in the midst of a similar situation, whether it's loss or whether it's having a difficult diagnosis or anything like that just kind of is a shocking change of situation, right? What would you say, kind of how do you start the process there? And I know you said you're still in this, in the grief and it comes and it goes, but what would you say to somebody straight away? Like, hey, this is something that you're going to experience and here's how you can start to heal, or here's who you need to reach out to, or what kind of, I guess, advice would you give to somebody with such a situation?
So right in the very beginning, if somebody received difficult news like that, I probably wouldn't give them any advice. I probably would just sit with them and just let them talk, because I get lots of advice and I don't know if it's always warranted, but
that's fair.
But once they're through that part, because there's a lot of stages, but once they're through that first, like anger, upset, my number one tip to people is to just find a group of people who can understand what you're going through without you having to explain to them what you're going through. So like I said, I couldn't find that exactly. So I created the group of the parents now who come together, who have terminal children, because there's some really hard stuff that you need to say, or that you need to have the safe place to say out loud. And it's only with those same people who are experiencing the same thing that will get you. One time I said something, it's like a dark humor. Sometimes I feel like you end up with when you're going through this situation. And I said something one time in front of family that like I could have very easily said in this other group, with these parents. And I said it in front of family and everybody stopped and looked at me and I was like, oh, wrong group. Because they just don't understand how you would ever get to a place where you could talk about, like losing your daughter. Like, how can you just joke about that? Anyways, so find your people that, you can just be yourself with and not have to explain why you feel that way or how you feel that way. And the other really important thing, I think, is to give yourself grace. Like, there will not be, it's not like you're going to get a diagnosis and you're going to be like, I know exactly what to do. And right. this has created purpose in my life, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I think that's really, really not realistic. That's not going to happen. I was in Bible study not that long ago, and we were studying the story of Joseph and how, there was the famine, and how he had filled his stores for 7 years so that he was able to then like help everybody, right? And so in that moment, I kind of like the visual of it gave me the compassion for myself and the comfort that like those first couple of years, those first like 3-4 years where it was really difficult on me, I think I was processing and I was gathering like knowledge and wisdom and like really filling my own stores and taking care of myself so that then I could turn around now and hopefully help people, hopefully share my story and hopefully be there for other people. And so, but you have to, in the beginning, just give yourself the space and the grace and the bed, like literally the physical space, your bed to like cry and just, be in it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like as a people, we get uncomfortable when we're uncomfortable, So when somebody says, oh, I got this diagnosis or anything like that. I had a friend at the church I worked at in Omaha who lost her husband and son in a car accident. And everybody just has things to say, and she's like, I would really just rather you not, you know, and so it's tough. And I think that it's just a lot of like, I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to say whatever instead of just not saying anything. So I think that advice of like, well, I wouldn't give them any advice at first is really, really solid. So if you guys get nothing else out of this episode, just when you're uncomfortable with somebody's situation, just sit with them and be quiet. So I love that. Hey, there's a quote on one of your Instagram pages that says, getting every drop of fun out of life. What does that look like?
What does that look like?
Yeah.
It looks like, okay, so again, that pressure, right? Like there's a potential, like we never know what God's plan is, but there's a potential that I only maybe have we only have the next 5 years with Jordan. Mm. And so I just feel like, it's a cliche, it's a cliche to say, like don't leave anything out. There's lots of them. Don't leave anything for tomorrow that you could do today. Sure. Like death is the best teacher. There's like all those little sayings, right? But it is very true. Like just because a doctor has told us that this is what's coming for us, it gives us this like false sense of knowing the future, right? But like really, like nobody is promised tomorrow. And so anything that you could say or that you could do today, do it today. Like, don't leave it for tomorrow. Like tell your kids, that you love them, whatever pops into your head, or like, say the things and do all of the things. But Jordan has a dream it, do it list. And so we've all created them, and they have everything from like little things to big things, like little, like she wanted to try frog legs. So that was on there, or she wants to go like dog sledding, and what else? I don't know, go on a hot air balloon and go to like a specific restaurant. And so we use that to like keep our focus on doing the things and get it, and like really experiencing all that life has to offer. And like I said, that's big things and little things. That's not just the big things, but. Yeah,
I love that. I feel like everybody should have one of those lists. That's amazing. It's like way better than a bucket list. But what you mentioned frog legs, but outside of that, I'd love to know like what's the craziest thing on one of those lists, whether it's Jordan's or yours or somebody else's. What's the one that everybody's like, really? Like
I don't know what would be okay. Well, my daughter is like a budding actress, so she's got like some really, really big ones on hers. What would be a weird one? I don't know. So simple. Like my son wants to ride a horse. Like, I don't know how we've never taken him on a horse before. Like he's 10 years old. How's that never happened? I don't know. What was the other thing? Oh, he wants to visit the sheeps.
Okay.
I don't know. He was on the internet once. I don't know. Just very, anytime somebody's like, oh, that would be cool, or I'd really like to do that, like on a list it goes so that we can like.
That's awesome. I love that because so many times, and just even outside of like this discussion, whether it's setting goals or creating vision for something or a dream it, do it list, like there's a lot of times when we go to write something down and it's just like, is that enough? Is that big enough? Is that like, is really like trying frog legs big enough? Because there's a restaurant right down the street. But like everything's big enough, like if that's what you want to do, like, man, have some freedom in that list. I love that.
Well, in our situation too, it gives you something to focus on besides just like the hard stuff, right? So like when we're like, we had a hard week, like we could go to we can pull something off the list and like go out for dinner that weekend, and it has like this purpose for the kids, right? It gives them purpose too, and so yeah.
Man, I wish I could put some purpose behind going out to dinner because we never can decide where to go. My wife and I are both the worst at making those kind of decisions. But anyway, what's next? Do you guys have any plans for taking something off the list here soon?
We always have big plans. But yeah, nice. Our next big one is my daughter has a couple things that we think we can cross off all in one shot. So she's got go on a cruise, see the Northern Lights, go dog sledding, and pan for gold. So we did book a Alaskan cruise for next year. So hopefully we can cross all those in one shot.
That would be awesome. I would love to do all of those things. Seeing the Northern Lights is on my now called the Dream It Do It list. But that's one of those things where I'm like, is that too big? I don't know if I'm ever going to go that direction. But I'm just like, let's just put it on there. Let's just see what happens. Who knows what God has.
Your next road trip, you could like detour a little bit north instead of like, you don't even have to go that north to see them.
Fair enough. I think there was a time recently where you could kind of see them from like Chicago or something like that. I remember seeing like something in the news about, you can kind of see the Northern Lights. I'm like, if I'm going to see it, I want to see it, I want to be like right there. But anyway, this has been great. Like what, as we look at just purpose in general, whether it's, purpose through pain or purpose through the day-to-day moments or purpose through just this monumental shift, what would you say, like, if somebody just came to you and said, I don't know what purpose is all about, like, how can I find it? Like, what would you say to that person,
That's interesting. That's a good question. For me personally, in the place that I've landed in now, it is the thing that where I've landed, I think I'm in it now. So it is the thing that pulled on my heart and my soul and that really tugged at me, that was almost a little scary to admit to or to like really get into. I think that like in the last couple of years, I've been able to choose to let go of the things that maybe society thought that I think society thought I should be doing, like specific incomes or, ways of earning an income, and really leaning into like that feeling and that pull from within. Like I remember saying to a friend, it was almost 3 years ago now, sharing that I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to not just share the good stuff, because at this point we were already sharing very openly on socials, but not just share the good stuff, but like really get into the really hard stuff. Like I feel like that's what I should be doing. And then it took me 2 years to share that first really hard post, and it was life-changing. But like I think it's that thing that once you give into it, like once you actually give into it, you just can't stop thinking about it. Like you just can't stop talking about it. Like I could talk about all this for hours now, right? I don't know how else to describe it. That was not eloquent, but
no, that's okay. There was a lot there. And you spoke to like the things that tug at your heart. A lot of times I think purpose comes through the things that get us fired up, maybe even make us a little angry sometimes, like this injustice that we can respond to, the things that make you really sad. There's a whole group there's a whole lot of people out there that are going through the same thing that your family's going through. Like, how can I support them? Like there's a lot of purpose there. It just comes in so many different ways. And I love that you added that thing that's a little bit scary, because as you look at it, I think it would, be easier, not easy at all, but easier to just like, all right, my purpose is to focus on my family and do these things for my family and let's make these years as awesome as we can. But you've chosen to kind of go beyond that and say like, okay, but now also how can I support other families in the same way? So tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned the group that you started. How did that come to be? Like how do you, what's it like? You know, how does that all work?
Well, it came to be because I needed it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there. And so I just asked at the hospital if we could just start something like that. And then we did. So out of necessity, I guess. Right. And, but it doesn't, so that's a really local community. Like we're all quite local, but like, we have now the power of like, okay, social media is good and bad. Like, you know, there's some hard stuff on there too, but we do have this power now to like connect to people all over the world who need us and who are in the same situation as us. And so one of the outlets now is sharing that same stuff that I talk about, the grief and the hard stuff. And also Jordan and her cuteness on TikTok is probably like our main platform right now. And it's really, it really reminds me how important doing that is when I get those messages from people who are like, oh my gosh, that's how I was feeling and I didn't know how to put words to it. Or, you know, who like reach out and are like, I'm also caring for, you know, XYZ, and like, or, you know, that reach out and they're like, well, I seen you on social media and I really need a group like you have. We have the potential now with the world we live in to just reach so far. And yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. Just the you know, I think there's a lot of things that we start out of necessity, right? But I think it's easy for you to look at this need and say, well, I really hope somebody does that, and then just move on with your life. But instead, you took the initiative to say, I really need this, so I'm sure other people need this, so let's get this thing started, which is amazing. And now you've taken it even farther, and hopefully can use that to inspire other people to do the same thing and like create these same, you know, support groups in their local communities. Because like you said, social media is good and bad, and sometimes that's the connection that we need. It's the lifeline that we need. But more often than not, I think we need real, tangible relationships, people that can show up when we need them to show up, and stuff like that. So again, just, you know, hope that continues to spread and push people to do the same thing. And tell us a little bit about, you know, you mentioned TikTok, we've mentioned your Instagram, like, where can we find you? And then how do we, as people who aren't experiencing this, or, you know, at the end of the day, literally have no idea what it's like, to care for somebody in that situation. How do we get involved? What do we do? You know?
What do you do?
Yeah, maybe that's not the great question, but you know what I mean? Like, how do we be part of this story, or part of helping support others? Maybe even not just with the same exact diagnosis, but just in general of what do you need from people who are not in that same season, if that makes more sense.
Okay, so let me start with that, and then I'll tell you where you can find us
awesome.
And all that stuff. Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately because the first, our first really trying season was at the very beginning when Jordan was diagnosed. We went to the U.S. for gene therapy, and so we left our country, we went to the U.S. and we moved. Me and Jordan and I moved there for 4 months, and we left the rest of our family here, and it was very lonely. We did not have a support system yet. She was newly diagnosed. We led a very like isolated life before that because we didn't know we needed a ton of people. And it was very lonely and isolating. And then fast forward many years after that, she was getting surgery here in Edmonton, and it was different. I had built this community of people that we needed, like, you know, we needed people around us, and I had insulated us in this community, and people showed up with, we were in hospital again for, you know, a couple weeks a month, and people showed up with coffee and food. And like some of the best things I would say that you can do for somebody else is, number one, listen to them. Like just listen without advice, without what you think. Don't shit on them. Like don't tell them what, you know, like what you think they should do. Just listen and say, oh my gosh, that must be really difficult. And then the second like tangible thing you can do that I love, and now I do it for others, is send them a gift card for like Uber Eats, or like, I don't know what it is in your area or like in the US, but like, what is it? Like Skip the Dishes? We have Skip the Dishes. Uber Eats, you know, like.
We have Uber Eats, yeah, and like DoorDash.
Yeah, where they can just like they're hungry and they need to order food and they don't want to cook. So like something like that, or like send a load of groceries to their house, like easy stuff that can just go in the oven that they don't even have to think about. Like that's just a really easy way to help somebody out that's in a difficult situation, because oftentimes we want to help and then we say to them, how can I help? Like, what can I do for you? But like when you're in it, you don't know what to ask for. You have no idea how somebody can help you, alleviate even just a little bit of the burden that you're carrying. So I always recommend that.
That's really good. This just simple things. I love that. Like, I like to just listen and then do the simple things that you would want. And that just reminder that sometimes people don't even know what to ask for. Like that's definitely true. And, I think too often we want to fix it, and you're not going to fix it. You can't so just do what you can. And so that's a good reminder. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And these things aren't fixable. So we just have to learn to be uncomfortable, really. If we want to be there for them, then we need to learn just how to be in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, just sit in that discomfort for a little bit. That's so good.
Yeah. And your second question on how to find us. Okay. So again, I'm going to give our last name, which is very difficult, but we're on every social platform as Going with the Gagnons, Gagnons. And we also have a website with the exact same handle, Going with the Gagnons. And on there, I do have a blog where, like I said, I've always kind of shared that stuff on Instagram or on TikTok in little blurbs, right? But I've started to put it more to paper on a blog on the website. So that's there, as well as my daughter had created this line of like affirmational sweatshirts and stickers. And they say like, I am wonderful, I am wild, I am brave, I am amazing, because she gets it all the time. And she thought that everybody in the world should also be able to feel that amazing. Good. So yeah, so that's all on the website as well. And you can read about, her story and all about us there. And on TikTok. Probably those two are probably the best ways to find us.
Awesome. And I'll put all that in the show notes. So be sure to check there, connect with the Gagnons. I think I said it right that time. I tried to only say it one time. But anyway, man, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you'd add as we kind of wrap it up? Any last I didn't want to say last words, but I can't think of anything else to say. Any final advice, wisdom, anything like that?
No, I feel like we touched on so much. Like I don't even have anything left.
Oh man.
Anything left that I felt like I didn't say. So no, great.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's been a really great conversation, and just, I'm reminded to maybe just slow down a little bit on trying to fix things all the time and just be with people. Which was just, like I said, a great reminder. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, that conversation with Christa was just so meaningful and impactful to me. I don't know about you, but personally, when I see someone that's in a difficult situation, when they're struggling, when they've got a challenge in front of them, I want to fix it. I want to help them fix it, to solve the problem. But sometimes that's just not the best thing to do. Sometimes the best things that we can do are the simple things. Send them a DoorDash gift card or Uber Eats or skip the dishes. I don't know. Maybe that's something from up north. But anyway, do the simple things, or just sit with them and care for them. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to give them advice. Don't tell them what they should or shouldn't do. Just be with them. Just be okay being uncomfortable. For me personally, I have a hard time when I'm uncomfortable not trying to come up with solutions. That's just not the right way to do it. And it turns out, honestly, supporting somebody who's going through a difficult season, it apparently is easier than we've ever thought before. It's the simple things. It's just showing up. It's just being someone to lean on. It's being part of a community, being supportive, and just being there. So if you see somebody that's struggling, if you see someone that's suffering, just be with them. Just be with them. On a lighter note, on a more fun note, I love the idea of this dream it, do it list that is just anything and everything. Like I said in the episode, sometimes when we're thinking about dreams or we're thinking about our purpose, we go to kind of add something to the list or add something that we think could be. We wonder, is it big enough? Is that enough? Is that cool enough? Is that fun enough? Like, does this really end up on that list? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I'm in a community, just like an accountability group that really helps people focus on accomplishing their goals. And one of the sayings in that group is fire the bouncer. Fire the bouncer. When you think, is that good enough or not? That's because there's this mental bouncer that's trying to protect your list from yourself. You got to get rid of that guy. Everything goes on the list. It's good enough. Okay. Your dreams are good enough. Your goals are good enough. The things that you want to do and accomplish in this life are good enough. Stop asking if it's enough. It's enough. And you're enough. You're enough because God has called you to be who he's called you to be. You're enough because you're following after that calling. Your dreams are enough because he has put them in your heart. Let me just tell you again, it's enough and you're enough. So if you've got this dream, if you want to try frog legs, man, put it on the list. If you want to ride a horse, put it on the list. If you want to go in a hot air balloon, put it on the list. And if you want to see the Northern Lights, and like I said, I would love to see the Northern Lights, but I thought maybe that was too big. It's okay. Put it on the list. Pursue your dreams. Pursue the things that God has placed in your heart, because he's gonna make a way. He's gonna help you figure it out. And I don't mean that he's gonna literally make a way for me to go see the Northern Lights, right? That may not happen in my lifetime, but God is going to equip me and give me the tools that I need to accomplish the things that are of him. And for me to figure out what those things are, to figure out the things that are of him, I need to be open to anything that pops into my mind and seems like it's something that belongs on the list. So I would encourage you again, dream it, do it. And what I mean by that is the things that are on your heart, submit them to the Lord, pursue him in prayer, and the things that he confirms for you, get after it. Get after it. Because when God puts a dream in your heart, it's there for a reason. He's got something he wants to accomplish through it. Hey, thanks again for listening to the This Awesome Life podcast. It's a collection of stories that point to purpose. To stay connected with This Awesome Life, just check out the show notes. That's where you're going to find everything you need to stay connected here. You're going to find the blog. You're going to find the newsletter. You're going to find my social media links if you want to connect with me there. And you're going to find the link to get yourself a copy of Magic in the Mug. It's a book all about discovering your purpose through a single cup of coffee. You're also going to be able to find links to get connected with Christa and her family down there, and I highly, highly, highly recommend you take advantage of that. There's some incredible things happening. They've got an incredible story that they're continuing to share with the world. Hey, if you love This Awesome Life, I would really appreciate it if you take a quick minute to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps get the word out and helps us get in front of people who would benefit from the same content. Don't forget, while you're here, go ahead and like and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on This Awesome Life.